Week 9 starts to set the table for the Big Ten championship run and possible playoff bids. Every game has an interesting twist to it. We'll talk about them right here. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So week 9 is very, very important. Why? We'll tell you. Plus, a reminder of our live broadcast Saturday night after the primetime games and our pigskin picks before we go. Put everything on the record here going into the weekend. If the college football season ended today, the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis would feature the Indiana Hoosiers versus the Oregon Ducks. I'd say it's early and there's still plenty of football to be played and plenty of time to shake things out, except there's not. It's getting to be crunch time. After this weekend, we will enter the final month of the regular season where every win and every loss means everything. And while Indiana and Oregon are undefeated at 7-0 with 4-0 Big Ten records, Penn State's right there at 6-0 and a 3-0 Big Ten record. And, of course, 5-1 Ohio State, 2-1 in the conference. They're not going away anytime soon. And 6-1 Illinois, 3-1 in the conference. Has a nice resume with wins against 3 top 25 teams. All these teams are in the mix. They're all in play, and maybe some others as well. So every game, including this weekend slate, is crucial. So let's preview every Big Ten game. That's what we usually do on Fridays around here anyway, and why they're important to the grand scheme of things. First of all, we have football tonight, Friday Night Football. Rutgers is at USC. Now, what happened to both of these teams? Both need to win badly. USC has lost 4 of its 5 Big Ten games, and in every one of them, they blew a lead late and lost by 1 score. Trojan fans are starting to inquire about how much Lincoln Riley's buyout is, $60 to $80 million, by the way. And if he loses USC's first ever meeting against Rutgers at home, that buyout talk is going to get a lot louder. Meanwhile, Rutgers started out 4-0. Everything was great. Solid offense, solid defense, solid coaching. They've dropped 3 straight, and they've given up 77 points in the last 2 games. It's time to regroup for Greg Schiano here. Last year's Big Ten rushing champ Kyle Monangai should have a huge rushing day against the Trojans defense, but Miller Moss should be able to have some success through the air against the Rutgers defense. So we'll keep an eye on that one Friday night. Now, on to Saturday. We got a couple of noon games on Saturday in the Big Ten, and that includes Fox's big noon kickoff with Nebraska and Ohio State, again, noon Eastern. Nebraska, good football team. We like to talk about them here on Locked On Big Ten. We do a lot. They went into Bloomington last week as a 5-1 team. A lot of respect and a good team. And they got blown out by the Hoosiers. Normally reliable Dylan Raiola was picked off 3 times, but it was the Huskers defense that couldn't stop the incredible Indiana offense. So the Huskies have their work cut out for them now against Ohio State. And because they play on the road and you know, it's on the road, Ohio State's awesome. This is going to be a tough task. If you think it was bad against the Hoosiers last week, we'll see. Ohio State's coming off a bye week. Gave an extra week to bounce back from that loss to Oregon. Along the way, we found out that Ohio State tackle Josh Simmons will be out for the year because of a left knee injury, suffered it in the Oregon game, and then they were off on a bye. And it was kind of seemed like a news blackout, Ohio State. So we found out a few days ago that Simmons sadly will be out. He'll probably be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. Zen Mikowski will take his place. He took his place in the Oregon game. No funny business here for the Bucks. The Buckeyes, they need to win and keep pace with Oregon and stay near the top of the Big Ten. Washington is at Indiana. The Washington Huskies looked like they were starting to get things together. They had that win against Michigan, and then they got blown out by Iowa a couple of weeks ago before their bye week. So I'm still trying to figure out Washington. Been trying to figure out Washington ever since they joined the league, what they are, because there is some talent there. But they let the Hawkeyes run all over them. And now they travel to Indiana to take on one of the hottest offenses, if not the hottest offense in the entire country. One note of caution for the Indiana Hoosiers. They're all everything quarterback. Curtis Rourke needed some sort of surgery. We're not sure what on his throwing thumb. Don't know if it was stitches. Don't know if it was a pin put in. We don't know. But he has had a bloody injury. It looked like the thumbnail was ripped off in the first half of that Nebraska game. Taven Jackson finished the game, did pretty well. David Jackson will be the quarterback this weekend. So, and by the way, lots of attention in Bloomington. Last weekend, it was the Fox Network and Big Noon Kickoff did their college football pregame show there from Bloomington. This week, it's ESPN Game Day. They're bringing their crew to Bloomington. And if the Hoosiers win, they're going to go to 8-0, and they will be very much in the mix for a spot in the Big Ten championship game. With games against, after Michigan State, they got Michigan and Ohio State coming up. The Hoosiers are the hottest story in college football other than Oregon, and the country's taking notice. Speaking of Oregon, they're at home taking on a ranked Illinois team. So speaking of Oregon, again, the number one team in the country, Illinois comes in ranked number 20. It'll be 3:30 Eastern time on CBS, 12:30 out there on the West Coast. Illinois comes into this game as with a 6-1 record, but as an underdog with a good defense and a capable offense. And they're fresh off their 21-7 win over Michigan. Meanwhile, Oregon answered its Ohio State win by flying halfway across the country on a short week and shut out the Purdue Boilermakers on Friday night. This game Saturday, this is why this one's important. This game Saturday for Oregon, I think it's they're all tough. I want to be respectful to all games. That's what coaches will say. I think this is their last tough hurdle on the schedule. It's their last ranked team. They've got Ohio State in the rearview mirror, took care of that. If they take care of Illinois, I think they're going to have a nice ride into one of those two spots for the Big Ten championship. They have 2 road games left, Michigan and Wisconsin. Michigan's not what Michigan used to be. Camp Randall, Wisconsin, sure, could be tough. Certainly winnable. And then home dates against Maryland and Washington. Now, the Washington game at the end could be tricky because that's a nice little rivalry, but all very winnable. So it appears that Oregon is in the driver's seat, controlling its own destiny to get to that Big Ten championship game. It looks good. Northwestern is at Iowa this weekend. Another 3:30 Eastern time game. Northwestern traveling to Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes. They'll be on the Big Ten Network. Northwestern's tough to figure out at this point. They blew out Maryland on the road 37-10. Then they came home and they only scored 3 points last week in a 23-3 loss to Wisconsin. Can't figure them out. Iowa starting to get tough to figure out as well. I mean, they got their cookie cutter offense, right? No passing, great running, scoring a lot of points somehow, and winning some games. In fact, in their 4 games, they're averaging close to 40 points per game. Remarkable. Again, with no passing game. But then they lost to a very inconsistent Michigan State team. I was surprised by that. Were you? 32-20 on national TV last Saturday night. That one surprised me a little bit. Iowa needs to win this one to stay relevant in the standings. All right, we still have some things to talk about. I'll tell you what's coming up in a second. But first, I want to ask you to subscribe. If you don't mind, it's free. And it helps us out a lot. And we're on the same page each and every day. Subscribe and follow and share Locked On Big Ten wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And don't forget, Christmas is coming. Get yourself some gear, or your friend or family some gear from your favorite Big Ten schools. We've got links to all of that right next to all of our podcasts on our website, talkbig10.com. You see the crawl on the bottom? talkbig10.com if you're watching on video. All right, Penn State. They're going to try and remain perfect, right? They got a game. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to tell you what you need to know about the Michigan State-Michigan game coming up as well. And again, another reminder for our live broadcast after those night games More details coming up. That's all next, plus our pigskin picks right here as we continue on Locked On Big Ten. Z-Biotics. Have you heard about this yet? Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough feeling the next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to take Z-Biotics as your first drink of the night. Drink reasonably, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Very simple. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. And Prize Picks. Let me tell you about this. It's daily fantasy. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players and a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Here's an example. You can take Justin Herbert and less than 1.5 touchdowns and against the Saints, and then say Jared Goff more than 1.5 touchdowns versus the Titans. Pair them together. If it comes true, you win. It's a ton of fun. Everybody's doing it. Download the app today and use the code LockedOnCollege and get $50 instantly on your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use the code LockedOnCollege and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Well, thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially you everydayers. Thank you for coming back each and every day. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Big Ten, your team every day, and take a visit on our website, talkbig10.com. All right, more games to talk about. All right, we got a lot to do here with a big weekend in the Big Ten. Maryland is at Minnesota. That's a 3:30 Eastern game on FS1. The Terps and the Gophers, they're both 4-3 overall. The Terps are 1-3 in the conference. Their one big win in the Big Ten was against USC. Minnesota is 2-2 in the conference. They also have a win over USC. In both cases, teams scored late to pull out close wins, so maybe they're evenly matched if you want to use USC as a barometer. As far as Minnesota, they got their other Big Ten conference win against UCLA. So UCLA, USC, Minnesota owns Southern California. On to the primetime games. Let's talk about this. We got a couple of them side by side tonight on Saturday. It's going to have to be a 2 TV night on Saturday night because I want to see both of these games. Penn State, 6-0 at Camp Randall, Wisconsin. Night crowd, jump around. It's going to be great. That is the NBC Big Ten Saturday night game, 7:30 Eastern. Penn State's coming off a bye, coming off a nice road win at USC in overtime. The offense and the defense really seem to be coming together for Penn State. They've had a week here in the middle of the season to dial it in with the bye and get rested and get healthy. And they look to maintain their perfect record and not lose any ground to the front runners in the Big Ten. And I've talked about this before, the Penn State defense. I really like. The later it gets in the game, the tighter the vice grip. They really do a nice job on that. Penn State and Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, they've been putting up some points lately. They've outscored their last 3 opponents by a total of 101 points. They've been lesser opponents, if you will, but maybe think Braden Locke in for Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback since his injury in the Alabama game. Things are starting to pick up finally for Luke Fickell, and maybe things are shaping up and going in the right direction for the Badgers. The other game Also 7:30 Eastern. This one will be on the Big Ten Network. It's a great rivalry. Michigan State at Michigan. Now, the Spartans going under the lights back-to-back weeks. They really had a nice win, a surprising win, as I said earlier, against Iowa. Quarterback Aiden Childs, he's the one to watch. He has so much ceiling, so much upside, but very inconsistent. And once he gets that dialed in, I think he'll be pretty good. He has settled down. He's got 9 interceptions on the year already, but 7 of them came in his first 4 games when he was trying to figure things out. The last 3 weeks, just 2 interceptions total. And that's trending in the right direction. I think he's starting to figure it out over the past couple of games. And he's starting to get dialed in with a favorite target. Nick Marsh is a freshman wide receiver for Michigan State. This is a name to keep an eye on already this year. He has been the Big Ten Freshman of the Week twice. He's put up some monster games. I think the other one was against Maryland, and then he had one last week. Incredible against Iowa. Really good receiver. So if those two get some sort of connection going, look out. Meanwhile, Michigan can't settle its quarterback situation. It's a problem. It's dragging the rest of the team down. They've started 3 different quarterbacks this year. There's talk that they're considering a 4th. We talked about this in a prior podcast this week here on Lockdown Big Ten. You can go check it out on YouTube and on our website, talkbig10.com. Now, Michigan may still have more talent from top to bottom than the Michigan State roster. But again, the quarterback situation dragging them down. Michigan's passing attack. Now, Michigan's been a running team for like forever, right? They had a nice quarterback with J.J. McCarthy, first-round draft pick of the NFL, a nice luxury to have. But they have fallen so far down with their passing attack. They have the 3rd worst passing attack in the country. There are 2 schools worse than Michigan. And do you know who they are? They're Army and Air Force, 2 teams that don't know anything about passing the football. They just run. By the way, Army, top 25 team. What's going on there? Defensively, we need to wait and see if Will Johnson will be back in the lineup for Michigan. He missed the second half of some second half action against Illinois with an injury. They said it wasn't serious. They eased him back into practice a little bit. He did participate in some things. But you know how Michigan is. They're so tight-lipped about all their injuries. So they kind of gave a maybe he will, maybe he won't kind of answer regarding that. And around the Big Ten, Purdue and UCLA have the week off. Anyway, that's the slate. Those are the games. They're all very important. Would love your comments. Love your trash talking. If you want to take a shot at your opponent, co-commenters on YouTube, I always love the back and forth as long as it's clean. Sometimes it's not. And so we'll look at and your predictions. I would love your predictions on the weekend on some of these games. Again, a programming note: both Penn State and Wisconsin and Michigan State, Michigan are both 7:30 Eastern time games, 4:30 Pacific. When those games are over, around 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific, we'll go live like we do every Saturday. This week it'll be like 11 p.m. on the East Coast-ish. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to do it as soon as the first game's over. They don't end at the same time. If one's a blowout, I don't know. I'm going to make a judgment call right around 11 o'clock and go live. So I hope you join me for all of that. You'll have my immediate reaction to these night games, immediate reaction to all the games from earlier in the day, plus your reaction. The beauty of me going live is I can take your live comments right there and get the pulse of what people are talking about right away and share that with you. So that's all live right here on our YouTube channel, Lockdown Big Ten, and you can check that out. We always have a lot of fun and success with that on the weekends, on Saturday nights into Sunday morning. All right, it's time to put our record on the line. It is time for Pigskin Picks. That's coming up next right here on Lockdown Big Ten. Hey, if you're a fan of NFL football, and who isn't, you can start getting some returns here with FanDuel and the NFL. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So you can get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and a whole lot more. It's all on the same page where you put your bets, where you place your bets. It's easy. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Some NFL action this weekend. It's a big number. The Titans at the Lions, -11. But the Titans are trading people. It's a road game. The Lions are pretty good. I don't like double-digit figures but I'm gonna this week. The Lions win and they cover the 11. They win by at least a couple touchdowns. Cardinals and Dolphins. Tua's back in the lineup. I like the under on this one, though, at 45.5. Neither of these teams can score. And the Falcons and the Bucks. The Bucks losing Chris Godwin. They're going to be struggling a little bit. I also like the under in this one at 46.5. So check that out. You can make those same bets. You can do whatever you want. All at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's do it. It's time for Pigskin Picks. It's time for us to go on the record. Some crazy point spreads this weekend that can make this a little tricky. I'm going to put it on screen if you're on video only. If you're audio only on your podcast, I'll describe it in detail here. But we'll go full screen with it. All right, let's start out with this Friday night game, Rutgers at USC. You know, a couple of weeks ago, if this was a few weeks ago, and if this was at Rutgers, I would have taken Rutgers. But the number's 13.5. Do I think that USC can win by 2 touchdowns in this game? Yeah. I'm not super confident. What I am confident in is that number 56.5. Take the over on that one. We think USC gets over the 13.5, and the game itself goes over 56.5. I think Kyle Monangai is going to run. I think Miller Moss is going to throw. I think there's going to be some point opportunities on both sides. Take the over in that game. All right, on to Saturday, Nebraska at Ohio State. Well, we saw what Nebraska did at Indiana, and here's a big point spread at 25.5. Again, I don't like these big point spreads, particularly well into the season. A lot of times you'll see these in September with non-conference games. I think Nebraska's broken right now. They got to get it dialed in. They got to get that other win to become bowl eligible. Tough week against Indiana. They're going to have another tough week against Ohio State. I like Ohio State to cover, and I like this number to fly past that 48.5. I mean, if Indiana scored in the 50s on Nebraska, Ohio State will probably get close to this 48.5, 50, and get in the 50s and go over that number by themselves, and then whatever Nebraska scores, add that. Washington at Indiana. It's funny. Last week, Indiana was a 6.5 point favorite over Nebraska. And they went 52-7. More of the same this week, but maybe not as bad. But yeah, Indiana covers the 6.5, and everybody. Indiana can score 40 to 50 points on their own. 53.5, take the over. Always take the over on these things with Indiana. Illinois and Oregon. All right. Illinois is ranked 20th. Oregon ranked #1. Oregon at home, a 21.5 point favorite. I like Illinois' defense. Okay. I think that Oregon will win. They will remain the #1 team in the country, but I don't think they win by 21.5. Give me Illinois in those points. And, but I do think this game will go over 54.5. I do. All right. So let's see what else. I got a lot of overs. Northwestern at Iowa. Iowa will cover the 13.5. I actually think this number goes over because I think Iowa will score in the 30s by themselves. If Northwestern scores anything, they'll hit the over on this number at 37.5. Maryland at Minnesota. I like Minnesota to win and cover the 4. But I do think this will be a 1-score game. And I think that number is right at the number at 45.5. I might shy away from that one. Penn State at Wisconsin. Penn State is 6.5 point favorite. They cover. The Penn State will win and cover. And I also think this number goes over. Here is Michigan State and Michigan. Michigan's a 4-point favorite. I'm going to call an upset here. This may be against my better judgment. Give me Michigan State to win this game. And 40.5. I think both teams will score in the 20s, so I would take the over there. It seems to be I'm happy at going on the overs on all these. But there you have it, my upset of the week: Michigan State of Michigan. We'll see how that goes. See what you think. I know I'm going to hear about it. Let's get your comments going. Hit me up with the comments on YouTube. Absolutely love to hear from you. You can reach out at Twitter as well at Talk Big 10. That's the number 10. And our website, talkbig1010.com. Be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Don't forget, we're going live after the night games on Saturday night. I hope to see and hear from you there. In the meantime, enjoy the games, and then we'll be back into the regular routine on Monday, counting it down to week 10, if you can believe it. So thanks for joining us. I always appreciate it. I never take it for granted. Spread the word. Tell your friends we're out here each and every day. If they're Big Ten fans, let them know that we are out here. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time.